You know what NGRI stands for? I'll tell it in the podcast. It's not guilty by reason of insanity.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Stop right there. Thank you very much. We're about to start our new podcast.
Oh, I like it. That's good. We
Thank
have
you.
to start it that way.
Oh, that's a sweet segue. Welcome. We are CDR. I'm Bryn. This is Matt. And this week we put ourselves through quite the challenge.
Yes. We listened to every single King Gizzard album.
That wasn't live.
That wasn't live.
Or EP.
Yep. Just 16 albums.
Yep.
A bit of intro on the band. I know we have the KG one, but they're a 7-piece Melbourne-based psych rock. I mean,
psych rocks.
Experimental. They're a little bit of everything.
Yep, they do whatever they feel like.
Basically. And they're prolific. They've released LW now, but they've already said that they want to release another 1 or 2 albums this year. Who knows how many albums they'll end up with in the next 10 years, but they could have 30 or 40 albums by 2030.
I just always wonder how do they tour when they do multiple albums in 1 year?
You'd have to ask Stu McKenzie, the lead. So
He's the driver of the band, or the band work as one? Because I know Eric, who used to be the drums, has decided to take a step back because it was just too much going on.
Yeah, but he's now running their record.
Yeah, he's the manager as well. So
yeah. I know that the drummer is fairly driven. So like for Infest the Rat's Nest, some of the band members were off doing other things, and it was basically Stu the drummer and the bassist, and they basically made that album themselves.
Yeah,
it's still a King Gizzard album. So I suspect that's where the driving force is, but there are that many weird and wacky ideas spread across the 16 albums that surely everyone's putting their piece in, right? How was your week with it?
I started out late.
Okay.
So Monday, Tuesday, I was flat out.
Okay.
And tackling a 2-month-old while trying to listen to psychedelic rock, read the lyrics, try and take notes while feeding.
Metaphorically tackling, I assume.
It was hard. Get him while young. Yeah. So I didn't start till Wednesday, and I pretty much dived in deep and got in the deepest on Friday, knocking out 7, I think, to 8 of the albums.
Yep. And
spending all of Saturday finishing off the rest of them and collecting as much notes and remembering as much as I could. And then today I think I knocked out about 5 albums again. So
how was your experience with the albums? What was it like?
Well, at the end I'm a fan, and it's easy to be a fan because they're kind of playing along the genre that I like. I think the only struggle was just trying to jam so many albums in a week and then trying to take notes. But all in all, it was pretty easy to do. Bar a couple of albums, I'm happy to put a back burner on and not really probably listen to them ever again. They weren't my flavor, but they just got such a plethora of things to do and things they like doing that it's okay to have 1 or 2 albums that you're not entirely drawn to.
Well, they're so prolific. I mean, if you don't like the album they release, just wait 3 months.
Yeah, wait 3-4 months, you get another one.
My week with it was pretty fun. So the one good thing about having so much music is there's just at no point can you just sort of sit and relax into the song. You're always sort of listening to what's happening because it's new. And for me to fit it in, I do a lot of running during the week, and there just was no way for me to listen to it all unless I was listening to it whilst I was running. So I managed to get a couple of albums in going for long jogs. And
I found the exact same thing when I went to the gym.
Yeah.
It was easy to...
Well, I wouldn't say it was easy. I mean, you got to pick
For me,
albums.
it's easy. For me, it was easier to take notes during sets and reps.
So, like, I had an 8K run where I was listening to Gumboot Soup, and I really wish it was Non and Gone Infinity instead.
I bet you do, yeah.
Well, just in terms of the tempo, I mean, Gumboot Soup...
No, we're jumping ahead.
No, I'm just saying, it's not as high tempo as Non and Gone Infinity.
Yeah, of course. I feel like you get a stitch running at a high tempo.
You can do, yes. But my week was great. I had a lot of fun. I got through all of the albums 3 times, which I think is Herculean, given the fact.
God. 3
3 whole rotations through, mate.
Oh,
Read them and weep. It was literally all I listened to.
How were your colleagues listening?
I mean, thankfully I have headphones. Otherwise, they would have gone stark raving mad. Tony reckons that I have a patience for that like nothing else. And even like the albums that I don't like, I can still just listen to them. But yeah, she couldn't understand why I would put myself through this 3 times.
I'm sure you'll shorten it down to albums that you do like and repeat.
I didn't, but I might in future.
That's
I'm not going to listen to my playlist that has all 170 odd songs is going to be deleted after this.
Yep.
It was 169 songs, I think, on the nose.
Oh,
yeah.
That's good to know.
Good to know.
That's one fact I did not know.
Ready to dive in?
Yeah, let's go straight to number 1.
12 Bar Brews. All right, so it's a garage, pub rock. There are heavy echoes, light psych, but that's very minor. And that's the flavor. What did you think?
Me, it was more a taste of the 70s with a surf skate style, sort of a hit with the Killers. I mean, I didn't mind. Bloody Ripper sounded a bit more like Kings of Leon. It was pretty awesome with the toe tapping album. Lots of blues along the way, I thought. And it was quite hard to follow what they were saying at the time.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, no, I normally kind of just thought this was like just a bunch of friends who got together and jammed and made an album.
So fun fact about this album, it was actually recorded off 4 iPhones.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Funny thing, when I looked at the track list, I thought this was going to be a lot of like Forenzel Rom sort of tongue-in-cheek and stupid songs.
Some of it is.
Yeah, I know, but it was just surprising to hear it in a different type of way.
Yeah, fair enough.
This is a great first album, I thought.
Yep, fair enough. Highlight tracks for me were Mudraker. The tempo change into the chorus was great. You had Sam Cherry's Last Shot, which was a strange one on that specific album because that's the western-y one where they had the guy talking, but then, well, the next album comes along, and that's one of the first interconnectivities between the King Gizzard albums that pop up. Then you had Bloody Ripper was basically indie bait, so it's funny that you mentioned that. And then you had one of my favorite ones off the album was Uh-Oh, I Called Mum just because it's fucking stupid.
That's the one that I thought was going to be a Friends of Rom.
Mum! Mum! It was fun. That would be the best way to put that one.
Yeah. What was your favourite song?
Probably Mudraker, funnily enough.
Yeah, funny enough, that's one too.
All right, next album is Eyes Like the Sky.
Eyes Like the Sky.
So Eyes Like the Sky is a Western frontier narrative that sort of sits somewhere between a Clint Eastwood and a Tarantino film, though I'd say leaning towards Clint Eastwood. It's a Western, it's a gruesome tale. What'd you think?
This album, I really, really enjoy it, and my strong opinion for anyone for this album is put this on when you're on a long road trip.
Yep, fair enough.
This is a great breather between audiobooks, podcasts, and listening to albums. This has got it all jammed into one, and I quite enjoyed the story.
Great. I have nothing to add.
Yep.
Next album, Float Along, Fill Your Lungs.
Oh, acid psychedelic, trip moving into a fast rock pace, and then even faster again because the first song is the pill is kicking in. What is it?
Head on slash pill, 16-minute.
Taking the wrong pill and then it is just spiral. Oh, it is a fun album just starting out from there, what it would be like to start your day with the wrong pill.
I mean, that's the impression I get when they were recording this. They must have had that experience. This album feels like 60s pop psych and the odd soul track. There's a track on here I reckon Stu sings like a soul singer. The second track, the Only a Man Loves a Woman or something like that, he sings in this weird falsetto that has like a soulsy sort of feel to it.
Yeah.
Head On slash Peel's, I reckon, the best one on the album. But
Definitely.
The one I want to bring to your attention is Mystery Jack, because Mystery Jack is another Western flavor. It sounds like you're walking through a desert when you're listening to that song. It doesn't fit the record, but I think it's a callback to Eyes Like the Sky.
Yeah, true.
Yep.
Yeah, sweet. Oddman.
So Oddman's is the absolute mixed bag, in my opinion.
It's just completely odd. That's why I was like, interesting. Intros, Bollywood. And then blues, strong doors, keyboard, harmonica, and flute. It's a bit of a slow album.
So I think one of the things that typifies this album is it actually has a lot of warbly flange throughout. It's an odd one for me. It feels like some of the songs on this album are really, really weak, and then there are some songs that are really, really good. It is an odd mix of tracks.
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
This wasn't one of my favorite. I think it was a little bit soft and slow for me.
Yep.
More along the line, I thought they were just trying to flex a different musical muscle.
as they do with great regularity.
Right, yep. And this is one where I think it was a bit of a miss on my behalf, but I'm sure as time goes by, I might come to love it if I pick and choose things out of it.
Maybe.
As a whole, probably not as an album.
So I think best tracks on this, on Oddly, Vegemite. It's too camp not to like. I love my Vegemite. Sleepwalker is kind of, it's sleepy, but it's a nice track. And then you have Hot Wax, which I reckon is the best track on the album.
Hot
Wax stepping on the door. I think it's great.
Yeah?
It's fun.
Funny enough, I thought you would enjoy that one because it's just...
It stands out like a sore thumb on that particular album. And even the dumb 20-second outro track, which is the album title, Oddments, is that it's so strange that as to be enjoyable. But that's all I have to say for that album. Anything?
No, I've already said it.
I'm in your mind, Fuzz.
Oh, skate rock. I actually enjoyed this. With a range of heavy fade to clean notes, almost smooth transitioning throughout the album.
Yep, so this is the first album that introduces, in my mind, the expanded GIZZVERSE, which is unfortunately something that exists. It's part of a potential narrative strung along throughout a lot of the albums, and I'm in Your Mind, Fuzz sort of represents one of the more focal points in their discography for that.
Yeah,
with tracks like Hot Water, for instance, and I'm in Your Mind, Fuzz. I'm not in Your Mind, Fuzz. Oh no, sorry. There's 3 tracks that are back to
there
back.
is.
They're all variants.
I'm in Your Mind, Fuzz. I'm not in your mind. I'm in your mind.
Yeah, that's the one. Yep, absolutely. So on the album cover, the castle and mountain in the background is the same from the Nonagon Infinity one, and I'm led to believe that it also makes an appearance on the Murder of the Universe album cover.
You know what? The Murder of the Universe, we get to that because all these album covers are pretty
intense.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to Polygon Wonderland.
We can talk about that when we get there. Absolutely.
Get there,
what did you make of In Your Mind, Fuzz?
Am I in Heaven starts to be interesting. Long blues, energetic. Sometimes club light song, and then I just think it's a bit of a slow jam, black keys really.
For me, Hot Water and Am I in Heaven, as well as the first 3 tracks, I think.
Yeah, they molded into each other so smooth. It was great, and that you will see in just throughout some albums when we get to a couple of others where that is just it the whole way through, and it is epic and tiring, but.
We'll get there.
So good.
Quarters.
So this is a 4-track, 44-minute...
No, 4 minutes.
4 minutes and 40 seconds, each song running for 10 minutes and 10 seconds. I instantly thought this was a fucking G-up. I was super psyched for this. I'm like, this is going to be a mad G-up. The first one, starting out The River, I was like, originally thought this was going to go through a... sort of the seasons of the Earth, and then realized when they came to the second track that is not what's happening.
It's mantric jazz, my friends.
It really is. Like I got jazz is a Santana, almost like an Endless Summer vibe, which is a surf movie if you've never met. God is in the rhythm. The making up. Tell me, what is expectating?
A word that you could imagine means that they're waiting, but it's the act of waiting in some abstract way.
Yeah, it's a made-up word.
Yeah. But I did actually like God is in the Rhythm. I thought that was
pretty good. And Lonely Still Sheep Flyer, I thought the story was pretty cool with a bit of a psychedelic rock with Hawaiian feels. I didn't mind this album, but it was a bit slow for me.
Agreed. Paper Mache, Dream Balloon. So this is a more acoustic-y, jazzier, lower intensity with a bit of pianos and bright horns.
Harmonica, soft guitar, flute, and a maraca.
It's very listenable.
Wow, you know what? You are turning into David Globerman, that's for sure.
I'm just saying that like this is something you can put
Andrew
on,
Globerman.
You can put this on in the background and it doesn't dominate. You could listen to it passively and not take it in, and it's not offensive. Like you don't have to work really hard to enjoy the music. It's not like friggin' Oddman. There are some strange tracks on that album, whereas this you can sort of just float in and out if you want. But I actually think this album's pretty good.
You like this one?
Yeah.
I was not. This is one of the ones where I'm like, probably not.
the tracks were catchy, right? Like that's one thing you could say about some of these tracks, whether you liked them or not. They each of them had like a little hook, like "Cold Cadaver, Cadaver," or
Yes.
"Trapdoor." I mean, "Trapdoor" is a big fucking hook. The whole song is a hook.
Yeah, the whole thing is a massive hook, and it's just awkward shit through it too.
NGRI, Bloodstain, right? Like that track is catchy. The thing that I liked about it is once I started digging into the lyrics, it's like most of the tracks are macabre.
Take it away with the lyrics.
I mean,
Get deep.
I mean, NGRI is obviously stands for not guilty by reason of insanity. It's just about, I suspect, a guy who goes around killing people going, oh, sorry, I was crazy at the time. Cold Cadaver is about a cold cadaver. Like there's nothing more than that. Towards the end of that particular song, there's descriptions of the cold cadaver decomposing, but Stu's singing real pretty and the song is real happy, but there's a decomposing body in the middle of your song, right?
Yeah.
And all the other tracks had some sort of grab to it that I didn't mind. Like Sense at the start was kind of fun. Bone is literally about being a pile of bones, right? And potentially dogs getting at you. The interesting little tidbit that you might not know is the last track on the album, Paper Mache, is literally just a flute bit from every other track that was on that album. It's just a conglomerate. It's the album fit into a single song at the end.
Oh, wow.
Like, there were points of interest on it that I actually didn't quite... I quite liked, actually.
So for you to wrap that up, it's a happy sounding album with morbid, disturbing lyrics behind it.
With some teeth underneath, absolutely.
Gripping in. Excellent. Probably your favorite.
Non-Gone Infinity.
Yep, which is the first of its kind to be an infinite loop album.
The one word I've got to describe it is banger. It's a good loop to be on.
It is. It really is.
I don't need to say much about it. So what did you think first? Because you wouldn't listen to it as much.
Won't have as much as you. The epic infinite loop album, straight out of the gate, is an impact, fast, loud, goes through waves, never slowing down.
What did you think of it? Did you like it?
I don't think it's the best album.
You don't?
No.
Okay.
It is very good considering it flows through every song and you're not really meant to know where it starts or where it ends, and particularly the album itself. But after listening to it once or twice, I know where the album ends and where it starts. It's pretty obvious.
I mean, you say that, but there are Reddit forums devoted to the argument as to maybe what the true beginning and the true end of the album actually is.
Oh, okay.
So that's a small taste of what the GIZZVERSE has in offer for you. So this is obviously the second major album as part of some sort of potential cohesive narrative. So Non-Gone Infinity ties well, obviously, into Murder of the Universe, but this track really lays a lot of the foundations and shares some of the artwork, obviously, with I'm in Your Mind, Fuzz. There's a lot of clues between this album and Murder of the Universe about this one particular character, what's his name, Hentayumi, potentially being part of this. And there are tons of Reddit forums, some that I even read, talking about what they interpreted as the running story. And the best thing about the lyrics is that they're totally non-committal. The entire thing is more thematic than it is anything. It might be a story or it might be representations of things. It doesn't really matter. The person listening to it can put whatever story they want on it, as long as it sort of makes some sort of sense. It doesn't matter. This album is an absolute banger. So in Robot Stop, they play the riff from Hot Water. The first thing I know, because I'd listened to this album before I'd listened to I'm in Your Mind, Fuzz.
Yes, if no one knows, this was album Matt's cheating album, where he listened to this 20 times as a buffer between what album?
Spacey Jane. Get that album away from me. I don't even remember the name of that album. That's how much I needed it erased from my mind. And that's right. Non-Gone Infinity opens the door, my friend.
It certainly did.
So, you know what, another little tidbit? So
yeah, give me it all.
You know the Big Fig Wasp song?
Yes.
The riff at the start of that song is the same riff as the Mr. Beat riff, except they play it with different timing. So the notes are one for one the same, but with different timings.
Okay.
And it sounds completely different. You wouldn't know it just listening to it until someone points it out. And it's like, oh, yeah. And then it has songs like Gamma Knife and Road Train and People Vultures and even Evil Death Roll's great. Like, the whole album's great. Anyway, I'll gush forever about it. We don't need to talk too much more about it.
Yeah, Matt's favorite.
Go listen to it. This is their best album.
Regardless
Regardless of what Bryn says.
Whatever. Flying Banana.
Flying
Which is
microtonal
the
banana.
start of the microtonal
Correct.
albums, which is also the first album of the year. They promised to release 5 albums in 1 year.
Did they deliver on that promise?
They did, and this one was dropped on the 24th of February.
What'd you think?
You know what? It was for a microtonal, I thought it was a good start to an experiment in the instrumental stage, which is, you know, not as well as they have done with KG, and what we're about to probably hear in LW, but it was an okay sort of a deep, just a bit of an indie jungle, a little bit heavy, but yeah, I just thought it was a great start to get into that type of music. I don't really have much for it.
Okay. I mean, this album I thought was far more varied than I was expecting it to be.
All right.
I mean, you have like the intro track, Rattlesnake, which I think was another one of those songs that really helped solidify King Gizzard as a prominent band after Nonagon Infinity basically put them on the map. But the album, after listening to KG and knowing that this was their first foray into microtonal music, I wasn't sure what to expect. But there's actually a ton of variety. Like, you have songs like Billabong Valley, which I will also say is another Western. Like, they love throwing in these Western, spaghetti Western tracks every now and then. Then you have like Anoxia, which is like a psych, dirty 80s rock track. Doom City, which kind of feels like the Hungry Wolves of Fate. Sleep Drifter, which there were riffs in there one for one that were the same as riffs from Honey in KG. But then I have to put my hat on and go, oh no, actually they released this song 3 years ago. Honey is like this, and it's fine with King Gizzard because they actually do a lot of the motif stuff. They do intentionally borrow bits from other places, other albums that they've released, put it into their music as like fan service, I kind of think,
yeah,
right? In the best kind of way. So I'm not sitting here going, oh, this sounds exactly like Honey. I'm going, this sounds, you know, I can see what they're doing here. They're having some fun with it. It's another microtonal album. Yeah, I was really surprised by the variety in this album. Quite surprised.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Murder of the Universe dropped on the 23rd of Jan.
I mean, you could affectionately call this the second storybook album.
This is you could call this a storybook album with 3 stories.
Can we give spoiler alerts? I'll give you a spoiler alert.
Sure.
So the spoiler alert, don't listen if you want to know how it ends, but it ends with Hentai Yumi literally vomiting the universe out of existence.
Boom.
Bang.
Murder of the Universe, which we're about to go into. So the first story in the album being about the altered beast, someone coming into what would think is a mental breakdown. It's either a person coming into possibly a split personality of another part taking over their mind, turning into this murderer who no longer has empathy until it gets to a point where the beast has taken over and is dominating, and that's why the murdering and killing is going on, no longer feels it. But the original me, or the unaltered me, is in there, and it can't take that. It now has 2 personalities, goes insane, and returns back to Earth, as in dying. And then it moves into what is the Lightning Lord and Balrog fight, which is just pretty much a Lightning Lord starts a fire in a small town. A Balrog comes out of the fire. It doesn't listen to the Lightning Lord. Doesn't care about it. Decides to attack the village. The Lord fights the Balrog. Balrog dies. Bye-bye.
I'm going to interrupt here. I'm guessing given you've taken a fair bit of time to digest the story, you actually quite like this album.
I didn't need to digest it because it's a story. And this one I actually got a chance to read.
So there are plenty of ways that you can interpret a lot of this sort of stuff. So like it's fun listening to this because it's like, oh, I'm back on the Reddit forums again and this is the post from Bryn, you know.
Oh, yeah? Yeah,
well, I mean, everyone has their own sort of thoughts on it. I, funnily enough, didn't spend too much time thinking about what it all meant other than it was fun piecing together the different interconnectivities, right? The Balrog, the intro is basically Trapdoor, again, back from Paper Mache.
Oh, here we go.
And some context is the riff from People Vultures, one for one. It's just the same. And then they literally lead into some of those tracks where, you know, Nonagon Infinity is explicitly said. You know, they're opening the door again. So clearly there's a lot of that conceptual tie-in. And I think that's what generally draws a lot of the fans in is that fact that, you know, Paper Mache is referenced, Nonagon Infinity, I'm in your mind, Fuzz. It all bleeds together in some fun ways. But yeah, I didn't deep dive the narrative other than Hentayumi is a cyborg and he vomits.
And that's the last story in the album, which is a cyborg that wants to die from vomiting and dying. He makes a machine that only does vomiting. It rejects his love, and
I assume that
he morphs and dies and vomits all over the universe, and that's how the universe is died. Thank you. Let's go back to this. The narrative in that album.
Yeah.
Lee Senior. Don't know who she is. No, there's not much on her, but
is she the one who speaks? Is she the narrator?
She is the female narrative. The male narrative is UK's Charlie, text to speech.
Yeah, it absolutely was. It was enjoyable listening to him mispronounce cyborg.
Yeah.
I can't remember how he mispronounced it, otherwise I'd attempt it. Did you like the album?
I enjoyed that album because I mainly enjoyed it for... Well, actually, I enjoyed the story as well as the instruments.
Fair enough.
So moving on to...
Sketches of Brunswick East.
Yeah, this is my least favourite.
Jazz album, lo-fi with some interesting phases, and I'm happy to leave it at that if you like.
Yeah, it's definitely a miss for me.
Fair enough.
It's not one I'm going to care about. Polygon Wonderland.
Polygon Wonderland, yes.
Polygon gonna get gone.
So this is, I would say, psych prog that also ties into Nonagon Infinity and Murder of the Universe, I think. And the album art suggests as much. There's a lot of references throughout the album to like tetrachromacy and the fourth color. Just as an aside, I see stuff like that and I immediately think of, funnily enough, quantum chromodynamics. So the way they talk about quarks is they actually attribute colors to them. And there are 3 primary colors that they use for that. What's the fourth color? It feels like what's the missing element, or at least that's how I felt like I engaged with it. It's like, yeah, what is the fourth color? Anyway, that's an aside. That's just a
we will come back to that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Quantum chromodynamics. Go look
No,
it
it's
up
just the
afterwards.
fourth color. They talk about a fourth color.
The last song on the album is called The Fourth Color.
Yeah, I know that.
And then
there's a color below blue.
No. I've explained it in a confusing way. For everyone listening to this, go on Google and have a look.
No, in the song they go, there's a color beneath blue.
Okay, yeah. So my suspicion is it's talking about something that underpins reality,
Okay.
right? That's the impression that I get.
Oh, it's my turn, is it? He's drinking. Alright, so this was the 4th. Sketches of Brunswick came out on the 18th of August. Polygon came out on the 17th of November. So there's still a month and a bit until they got to release their 5th. I think it's back to rock, and this is one of the times where I get into an album and I'm listening to it and I'm like, is this the same song? I look at it and it's like, yeah, it's 10 minutes long. I was like, yeah, it's the same fucking song.
Crumbling Castle.
Yep, Crumbling Castle. This is more of a chaotic wonderland. I kind of felt this was, you could make an Alice in Wonderland out of this little trip. It's not really depending on heavy guitar riffs and adding a little bit more of a sci-fi effects. I get a lot of Daft Punk halfway through this, and if not, at some stages I thought I was watching Tron Legacy during it. I'm not gonna lie, it's everything kind of blended into one towards the end, and this is why it does, because Matt's gonna tell me where there is connection between this album and other albums, and this is why I got lost.
So some fun facts. It's a prog rock album. That's what prog psych rock. I mean, you can't
Prog.
Yeah, progressive.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Crumbling Castle is the prime example, right? It has lots of different phases. It moves. It crescendos in its own way. And a lot of the other tracks shift between a lot of different sounds and textures. I actually think it does a fairly good job of that. You have songs like, the Castle in the Air, brings back that female narrator as well. And then you have the fourth color, which ties it all off. I do get the criticism of some of the songs feeling pretty samey. Which is odd to say given the fact that I said some have different textures, but sometimes it can be tough to stitch the narrative together over that many tracks. In terms of how it ties into, say, Nonagon Infinity or Murder of the Universe, the album image, it looks like you're inside the mountain from the Nonagon Infinity mountain, like diving into some deep recess of some reality. Like it's an intense album cover art. And the last fun fact I have is that you can freely download this. They actually don't own the rights to this.
Yep. However you want, just find out they don't give a shit.
Anyway, I have nothing more to say about this album.
Gumboot Soup, which dropped on the 31st of December, so they made it in.
About 3 hours before midnight. Too.
Yeah, on the 11th hour, some would say.
So this one's a mixed bag. I get the impression that it was like all the songs that didn't make the other albums.
Yeah,
that's the impression that I get.
That was a key thing that I came across as well, is it didn't match up, but it wasn't that unnoticeable either.
Well, that's the other thing I was going to say too. Like there are actually some good tracks on here, and I mean, a good album with good tracks, it doesn't really matter if it has a cohesive theme. I've listened to plenty of albums that don't. It doesn't need to, and this one I thought it had its moments. I thought. What did you think?
Look, it was not one of my favorites. This is another one I just put on the back burner. Fishing for Fishies. Okay, so
no.
What?
Shut up! I'm not done.
Oh, you're not done.
No, I liked it. You didn't. I don't. I can give you some quick tracks on it. So, like the intro track, "Beginner's Luck." You didn't like "Beginner's Luck"? "Beginner's Luck." No.
Yeah, it was alright.
And then you have the Greenhouse Heat Death. You know, it feels like it could have come straight from Infest the Rat's Nest. That one. And then you have like the Great Chain of Being, which is like the dirtiest rocker song that they have. It's 80s like dirt metal in the best possible way, right? I just thought there were some good tracks on it. It was a good finale. Like if that was the 5th album you'd released in a year, and I'm sitting there waiting for the drop in quality, it didn't necessarily come with this album, in my opinion. Fishing for Fishies. This
one I kind of glossed over.
So this is the first full-blown, I would say, environmental album.
Yes, I did get that feels when I didn't get to read it, but there were some lines in there where I heard it and I was like, that sounds almost like a message.
Well, I mean, the intro track, you know, I'm fishing for fishies, but I'd rather let them swim.
Yeah.
It sort of plays that. And I reckon the best track on the album, Plastic Boogie, talking about, you know, all the fast food plastic that you have that ends up in the ocean. Aside from it being, I reckon, an absolute banger.
It is a banger.
Is very sort of environmentally focused. But I tend to have the same opinion as you. It sort of washed over me a lot. Aside from Plastic Boogie, that one stood out.
Yeah. I wish I had more time to sit down and read the lyrics for all these albums.
I actually didn't mind Side Boogie either. It felt like
Side Boogie was pretty good.
Felt like an ELO.
I think both the boogies were pretty good.
Yeah. They boogie well.
Yeah.
Infest the Rat's Nest.
This is heavy Metallica influence. Just
I get Slayer vibes, to be honest.
Yeah, no, anyone from those heavy hard rock like that came up with it, like Iron Maiden being there too, is just insane. Like it's just heavy, head banging, just stomping. This would probably be the one that would have the mosh pits in it. I can't think of any of the other albums would have mosh pits, but this one is just a Metallica King Gizzard impersonation, and it's fucking rocks.
How quickly you forget about Nonagon Infinity, my friend. So this is also an environmental album, BT Dubs.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. It's just about going off world and it ending badly because they screwed Earth over.
Yeah, that's why there's no Planet B.
There is no Planet B.
There is no Planet B.
So did you like the album?
I did like the album.
Me too.
This is one of the ones that I will listen to again, and I want to read the lyrics and maybe dwell a bit further into it.
Sure.
Fun facts from this one?
Actually, I don't have a ton of fun facts, but I can say that, like, Venusian 2, that intro drum is the same from the Road Train. The Road Train track is basically talking about some hell-bound thing, and Venusian 2, it feels like you're about to go into hell, and the next track is, like, Self-Immolate, and then the last track is Hell, so, I mean, it basically is the progression into it.
Yeah.
What were your favourite tracks, then?
My favourite tracks?
Yeah.
No, can't tell you.
So my favourite 2...
is the whole album was good.
The whole album was good, but I thought Organ Farmer was brutal. Organ Farmer is brutal. It just has this absolutely wicked verse riff that just punches you in the face. And then the second last track, Self-Immolate.
Self-Immolate, yep.
I want to be set on fire. Like, that just sticks in my head the whole time. I reckon those two tracks are awesome. And even, like, perihelion. It's like perihelion. Like as soon as he sings that, it's stuck in my head as well, and it's just rocks the whole way through.
It is rocky. It's hard, heavy, double kick bass all the way through. And who doesn't love a double kick?
I think you knew you're in for a good thing with the intro drums.
Yeah, straight away. As soon as it started playing, I was just like, I'm gonna love this.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times this is not an album I can put on repeat. Like this is a once a month or once every couple of months where you just like, I need to just get heavy. And just like, bah, bah, bah.
Yeah.
Just like rock it. You just want to go to bed with a headache.
Yeah. So did your opinions of KG change as a result of listening to literally everything they put out?
I didn't get to KG.
Yeah, you don't need to listen to it again, but do you have different feelings towards it having heard, I mean, particularly the Flying Microtonal Banana album?
There's definitely, I would say, more respect for this band and everything they've done over their short career.
Anything particular to KG?
Any difference or changes for me? I would have to listen to it again to get a new appreciation, but unlike you, I won't be able to make those connections to previous albums. But we'll dwell on that. You do your little take on KG, and then I've got questions.
Fair enough. KG, I think, probably gets turned down a little bit in my estimation. I thought Flying Microtonal Banana had more variety, more experimentation, funnily enough, with the music composition compared to KG. So that was the thing I was saddened by. I still like KG, but like maybe a tiny bit of the sheen is off it for me, just because I think it didn't do enough relative to Flying Microtonal Banana to distinguish itself. It's still fine, and I'm hoping LW is a little bit more adventurous and doesn't sort of do the same thing.
Yeah, I'm hoping that with LW, KG, and LW would be like the Flying Banana just spread across 2 albums, and that they loop them together as well, considering the first song on KG is also the same track name in the last track in LW. So I'm looking for another loop.
Do love my loops.
That would be really, really cool. Let's talk about album covers being done by, most of them being done, especially your favorite ones, done by James, who is the drummer, I think.
Oh, really?
In the bands.
Okay.
And I have noticed that the Murder of the Universe and the Polygon Wonderland kind of did look the same. But yeah, tell me more about the album since you've been on the Reddit forums and deeper than I did.
I think I've said most of it. What they seem to think is that, Hentai Yumi is the cyborg potentially from Robot Stop, and the robot, is uploading his brain to the mainframe. He's losing his body. What the timing of all that is, no one can really say. But there's a lot of tie-ins there.
Which albums do you reckon look the same?
So, I'm in your mind, Fuzz. The mountain image is the same as the mountain image, or approximate to the mountain image in Nonagon Infinity. And then there is conjecture that the Murder of the Universe has it sort of built into the background of that weird vomit thing that you see. And once you realize that it's vomit tainting everything on that album cover, it becomes infinitely more gross. And then Polygon or Wonderland, it looks like you're on the inside of a mountain. And given the fact that there are those minor tie-ins to the previous albums, you can't help but think that they're setting it, if not in the same story, at least in the same conceptual space.
Cool. King Gizzard's Lizard Wizards are a lot smarter than I am. That's good to know. That's fun when they with artists decide to tie songs or stories into other albums. And the best thing about King Gizzard has been that they do just make stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of artists have lost that skill or even attempt to do that anymore, where they make an album and it's a story that's not even relevant to their lives. It's just one that they decide to sit down and make like a short story and then turn it into a song.
Oh, I can't wait to introduce you to some other bands then.
Well, I am super excited about that because it's kind of an art from music that's getting lost amongst the fame and the money, I would like to say, is that everyone's too busy trying to make these inspiring songs about be the best you, or fuck everyone else, or spend that money, drop that ass. You know, swipe that nose like a credit card. You know, shit like that.
I don't hate that song though, because it's just so extreme, and it's in its an extremity that it is, no pun intended, that it is fun. I mean, I'm not going to walk around the street singing it. One, because there might be children around.
Two, you don't have one.
No, two, I don't have one, and three, I don't know all the words.
Yes, this is true.
But macaroni in a pot.
But yeah, the lyrics are funny, and I tell people you should look at the lyrics before you judge the song, because it is funny.
Were you happy to...
I enjoyed this. Actually, even though it was hard, especially for me, Matthew, you did not struggle like you don't every week. 3 times. I'm very impressed.
I mean, it was a lot of albums to listen to. Like, that was a concerted effort.
But to be able to take the time to make mental notes or write them down and just make the connections.
Some of them stood out. And the one beauty of it is that it turns out my favorite album of the lot, Nonagon Infinity, I'd listened to a ton, is one of their friggin' central focal albums anyway. So a lot of the tie-ins relate back to that album almost exclusively. So it was actually fairly easy for me. I was familiar enough with the material. I felt like I had a head start.
I think I want to know is, you can count music, right?
I mean, I can keep time, yeah.
So does that help you with remembering different types in the music?
I think when it comes to remembering the music, it's if there's something novel being played with repetition. So, for instance, I will have an easier time remembering, say, Nonagon Infinity as compared to Oddments. There were things in Oddments that I just had a lot of trouble grasping because they were a little bit slippery. Or say, for example, what was their third album? Sorry, Float Along, Fill Your Lungs.
Yep.
Really psyche at a lot of times. Like, I couldn't tell you any different parts of, say, Head On Pill other than you can sit and listen to it and be like, ugh. Although there are some really friggin' sweet oohs throughout that song, but I can't tell you much more about that. That doesn't stick in my head.
Yep.
So yeah, I would say interesting and repetitious obviously help with the remembering process.
Cool. Do you have any cons?
I think that the age-old criticism of King Gizzard is that they are so prolific, but it makes it hard for them to produce regular and consistent quality. I don't necessarily think that's true, but I can see why that argument gets made. There are a lot more albums here that I won't listen to than I will listen to, but that didn't mean I didn't enjoy walking through it. And a lot of those albums were really in their formative years, right? That's probably my one criticism. Maybe they do produce too much music. I think it's possible that they do. What about you? What do you think?
My only criticism is it is hard to understand what they are singing majority of the time. And it's not even singing, it's more just vocals. And they're very faded. They're in the background. They're not... I think that's the only thing when it comes to bangers for these albums or any of the songs from it, is that it's not the lyrics that bring out the bangers, it's the music that really does.
Yeah.
I would like for there to practice on singing, really.
So I actually think that for whatever reason they intentionally mix the vocals low.
Yeah.
And I think it ties in with their psych feel. And
I was going to ask, is that what makes it a psychedelic album? Does it need to be faded vocals?
It doesn't need to be. I think it just... I mean,
or is there a flow that you need to have?
I think there is something like that. But the other problem or conundrum is that like King Gizzard are fairly prominent in this space. To some extent, there are some... liberties they take in that because they are such a big band in that psych space.
Yep.
I don't know. That's a hard thing to sort of encapsulate. I mean, I would like a bit more clarity in the vocals as well. Make it easier to listen to what they're saying.
I wonder how long their candle's going to burn, because they just release so much work. Do they ever stop, or
probably not?
Just take more drugs. Which album would you recommend to people first?
Nonagon Infinity.
Of course
easily.
You would. I'd do Nonagon and Infest the Rat's Nest.
Yeah.
I probably would say on a road trip, Eyes Like the Sky. I actually did enjoy that a lot. Murder of the Universe. Boom. That's what I go for.
Fair enough.
Musically, which one stands out? Monogon.
Well, Nonagon Infinity, I mean, isn't as musically expressive as others, but I think it's the best. It's the best of the bunch. There's far more experimentation on Flying Microtonal Banana.
Yep.
Like, what act uses microtonal music in main? Oh, it's not mainstream, but who uses microtonal music basically? So like that's far more experimental or musically challenging as well.
Did you hear a lot of microtonal? Because it wasn't as noticeable as KG's first track.
No, agreed, but it's still there, and every time you hear it, it's like, oh. And Tony made the comment, she's like, oh, it's like listening to like a high school of Stedford sometimes. All the bung notes being played. I'm like, but they're intentional.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Give me your rates. Ready to bust through them.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
12 bar bruise.
5.5.
Eyes like the sky.
3.
Float along.
3.5.
Oddman.
3.5.
I'm in your mind, Fuzz.
5.5.
Quarter.
4.
Paper mache dream balloon.
6.5.
Nonagong infinity.
9.
Flying bananas.
6.
Murder of the universe.
6.5.
Ooh. Sketches of Brunswick East.
3.
Fuck, you're rough. Polygon Wonderland.
6.
Gumboot soup.
6.
Fishing for fishies.
4.
Infest the rat's nest.
7.
Okay, we're gonna go. I'm gonna look at those later because there was a couple of 3s in there, and that is Matt's lowest scores he's ever given.
I couldn't give lower than, out of principle, I couldn't give lower than Kid Leroy's because none of them were as bad as that. So I was like, some of them are on par. Like, I'm not going to listen to Eyes Like the Wind again.
Yes, you will.
Nah, I genuinely will never listen
Yes,
to that
you
album
will.
again.
You'll be driving the cans.
Never.
You'll be going back there, and you'll be in the back seat, and I'm going to put it on.
Okay. I mean, if you're going to force me, whatever.
Fuck. All right. This has been an extremely long podcast.
We're listening to LW next week.
We are listening to King Gizzard's Lizard Wizards LW next week. And this will be the end of KGLW for a bit.
Thank God.
It's been fun. I have enjoyed it tremendously. I do not recommend it.
Yeah, I don't recommend listening to all the albums. Pick out the 3 that we've sort of recommended and run with those.
Yep.
Anyway, you got anything else to say? Or are we done?
No, I'm done.
Me too. I'm done too.
I'm so tired.
We've been CDR.
Later. I'm so fucking tired. You can put the album cover down the bottom when we're talking about them.
Oh.
And all I can think about is sketches from Brunswick East is just going to be,
Yeah.
got nothing to say.